Evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the 716th edition of the Feuerstein's Fire American Soccer Show. I'm your host, Daniel Feuerstein, giving you American perspective of our clubs, leagues, players, national team, and other fabulous moments. Get your daily reading from me and other writers over at Beyond the 90, at beyondthe90.substack.com, locally on New York Soccer over at baddogsports.com. Come on in, discuss amongst yourselves if you like. The chat room is open here on on YouTube, not Facebook, on YouTube. And please don't forget to subscribe here for your daily American soccer content. And, of course, the chat room. Talk amongst yourselves if you like. You have a question for me, I'll try to answer to the best of my abilities. Before we begin for the show, let me just do and say this, how sad I am and very disappointed in the situation that has happened over at South Georgia Tormenta of USL League One. As many of you saw and are very shocked at the reports that they are shutting down the professional team for 2026. And I am not sure. I didn't read the whole thing. I'm not sure if it's going to be for beyond or just for this season, but it feels like it's for beyond. You bring in all these players to be a part of this club. They're training on their own. It's about maybe a couple of weeks before the new season begins. And now they just announced that they're done and they will not start the season on time for USL League One. Once again, this is the part where I am sad for a community. For those in South Georgia that support this club ever since it started, that they can no longer move forward and be in the professional level. Now, thankfully, and I'm grateful that they'll still be around because of their youth programs, youth soccer. They want to continue on in that realm, and I'm happy to hear that they're not going away completely. But for them to say goodbye to the professional levels of American soccer, what does that do for all of us? Not just those in the South Georgia area that supported the Tormenta for how long? But for those of us that wants to see the sport succeed in our country. Doesn't matter what level, doesn't matter if it's in the first division, the second division, the third division, the short seasons, the national leagues, the amateur leagues, and such and so on. This hurts. This hurts those in that community. This hurts in USL League One. This hurts in the USL community as a whole. This hurts the game in this country. And who are the culprits who allowed this to happen? Well, there are, in my opinion, two culprits. The first culprit, ownership. They should never have let it go this far. If you knew you were not going to perform in the 2026 season and called it quits, you should have done it before the offseason began. You should have avoided training camp. You should have just not bothered with ratcheting up your players to put them in a position where they're going to train on their own. And now they're free agents. And now they're just moving on. And who knows if they're going to be with a club this year? Who knows where they're going to go? Are they going to go to a USL Championship club? Will they sign with a USL League Two club, even though it's a short season? Will they join an independent MLS Next Pro club? Will an MLS club give them an opportunity? We don't know. I don't know if they'll ever go over. I don't even know if they'll go overseas. And it doesn't have to be in Europe. It could be somewhere in CONCACAF. It doesn't have to be in South America, like I said. Maybe it could be in Africa. It could be in Asia. It could be somewhere in CONCACAF. It could be in the Costa Rican League. It could be maybe in Honduras. Maybe they go to the Caribbean. They play in the Jamaican First Division, the Trinidadian First Division, maybe even the Curacao First Division, if there is one. I don't know. But what I do know is this. The owners of the club kept silent, and they decided to hang their players out to dry. Who else is at fault at this? Who else? USL is at fault at this. Because if USL knew that South Georgia Tormenta was having an idea of folding and putting themselves in a position where it was too little too late, they should have done something. They should have just said, owners of Tormenta, leave the club alone. Or what they'll do is they'll run the first division, they'll run their club on the professional level for this season until you can fix this problem and then move on. But no, that's not going to happen, is it? Because for USL, it's all about who's next club up to take over that spot. And what more can we do to try and battle against MLS? Because right now, USL is just not doing the job. USL is just not doing anything to tell us that they are going to be better than whoever else they think it is. And the truth is this: United Soccer Leagues right now worrying about Pro Rel, worrying about First Division. And meanwhile, they just lost a third division club. So what happens if Pro Rel comes? And what happens if a club decides to no longer can be a part of the United Soccer Leagues? What are they doing, United Soccer Leagues? What is Paul McDonough going to do? When you have a club who is ready to call it quits and basically push them out of the way, sayonara sucker, move on, I don't care, it's not our problem. We'll just wait for the next club to come in and call for an expansion bid to come into League One. Who is it? We don't know. But whoever wants to show up and take that spot, you're more than welcome to grab it. Just hand over your check to the United Soccer Leagues, and that's it. And this is where I get upset, and this is where I'm sad, and this is where I believe that we're losing clubs that shouldn't be happening. Growing the game. This is not growing the game. It's not just growing the game in the MLS circles. It's not just growing the game for players to make the national team. This is growing the game on all levels. And now what's going to happen? The club that will begin as the opponents to South Georgia Tormenta will now have a free pass to the second round of the Open Cup. The USL Cup will now have one match removed, depending on how many clubs are in that group, and they'll probably be awarded an automatic 3 points, an automatic 3 points. It's really sad, and it's really disheartening, and it's really tough to watch when you've got a club that decides to call it quits and to end its existence. Because these players, where are they going to go? These fans, now all they have left in their closets are a memory of South Georgia Tormenta no longer in play. And basically, South Georgia Tormenta 2 will be South Georgia Tormenta 1 in the PDL, USL League 2, I should say. It's really disheartening, and it's really sad. And what is U.S. Soccer going to do about it as well? What will they do about it? Do they care? Another club bites the dust? I don't know. Is the hierarchy of USL upset? I don't know. Obviously, it's frustrating for those clubs that have joined USL League One. It's obviously disheartening to see, the future clubs coming in through expansion through 2027 and currently in 2026. Now they got a bye week in their schedule. 2 bye weeks if you're going to be going on the road to South Georgia. And if ever, South Georgia did come up for when they're on the road, it just baffles my mind. It baffles my mind without a doubt, and it just absolutely ruins, my appetite, my dinner, my good feeling that we're never going to lose another club again. But it happened. If it's not losing a club due to a new club coming in and playing in MLS to take over that market, it is a club that is in financial restraints, financial ruin, and they're going to call it quits before a season gets underway. It's just really disheartening, and it's really sad. And I feel for those people who supported that club. I mean, look, I'm glad they're still going to be around. They're going to be around for the kids. They're going to be around for the community. But on the professional side, the pro league side, that pro team, those players are now in trouble. We don't even know if those players are on national teams within this region of CONCACAF or from somewhere else. What are they going to do? Where are they going to find their national team football? We don't know. I don't know. I wish I knew, but we don't. And I know I don't. It's sad. It's very, very sad for South Georgia Tormenta. Another club bites the dust. And USL League One, I'm not going to call it a shambles because it's not that, but it's a sad day for USL League One that they are now minus a club to start the season on time. It's really sad and it's really pathetic. And I'm just not happy about it. But hopefully there will be a club somewhere down the road. We all know Cascades is coming in along with Fort Lauderdale United's men's team is coming in next season. Hopefully there'll be a third club joining them to take over that spot for South Georgia Tormenta. Or maybe, who knows, maybe hopefully they can right the ship and come back for next year and say, we're sorry, we didn't mean for this to happen. Now we have a better financial situation and we'll be coming back for the 2027 season. That's the hope. If not, thank you, South Georgia Tormenta. It shouldn't have happened. It did, unfortunately. And all I can say is, this can't happen again. And this should not happen again. If you're not going to be around for the new year, don't cut it so tight. Don't make that window so small. Just say it so the players know where they stand. That's it. Ladies and gentlemen, this segment is sponsored by Dino Luzzi Energy Drink. When I need that extra kick to power through match analysis and late night transfer rumors, there's only one drink that delivers authentic Italian energy. That's Dino Luzzi. Crafted in Italy, the same passion I bring to this show, because real energy comes from real ingredients, just like real soccer talk comes from real insiders. Ladies and gentlemen, my guest tonight, we're going to talk about that big win for the brand new head coach for Red Bull New York and in Major League Soccer. And that is, of course, Michael Bradley. Joining me to talk about it from Empire Soccer Report, the one and only James Birle joins me tonight. James, how are you after the course that amazing weekend to open up the brand new league season? Look, I don't think you had expectations for this match. I didn't have any expectations for this match being down at Inter & Co Stadium, but what an amazing introduction that Michael Bradley gave us managing this Red Bull New York side and the way they did it.
Yeah, first and foremost, thanks for having me on, Dan. I'm glad I can chat about this match with you, given that you were there in person. But you're absolutely right about the expectations. My expectations were that Orlando City were going to give Red Bull New York a very tough game. Michael Bradley and his men would have to battle some adversity through that match, and they certainly did, but I did not think they were going to be as dominant as they were, particularly in that first 45 minutes. And I say Michael Bradley's men, but maybe a more apt word would be Michael Bradley and his young men, and Michael Bradley or those children, because as we know, two 17-year-olds and a 16-year-old started that match. It's the first time 3 players under the age of 18 had ever started in the same starting 11 in Major League Soccer history. It makes sense that Michael Bradley, who debuted for the Metro Stars at 17 years old way back in the day, is the manager that does it. And I mean, those particular players, Matty Dos Santos, Audrey Mehmeti, and of course Julian Hall, who had a first half brace, were arguably 3 of the best players on the pitch the entire night. It was a masterclass in terms of the identity and playing style that Red Bull New York wants to showcase. They were unbelievably aggressive from the opening whistle. They controlled the ball for the majority of that first half, especially. But then even when things didn't go their way in the second half, when they were against the ball, they still looked like they played with that level of intensity and confidence. And they never for a second looked like they were going to lose that match, even when they were under siege. And you have to give credit as well to the defenders who stepped up. Justin Che, an unbelievable debut at center back. Dylan Nealis, who has raised some questions about whether or not he can compete as one of the 2 center backs in a back 4. He was excellent. And of course, the debutant goalkeeper, Ethan Horvath, who we've seen play admirably for the U.S. men's national team, has been iced out of the last few clubs he was at. This is the first time he's going to have a real shot at being a number 1 long-term for at least the last couple years of his career, and he answered the call. He had a number of fantastic saves. Certainly wasn't as busy as Maxime Crepeau on the other end, but he earned the man of the match performances, and then 2 teenagers in Audrey Mehmeti and Julian Hall get player of the match week recognition from Major League Soccer. An unbelievable start to the Michael Bradley era, Dan, better than anybody could have imagined.
No, absolutely. And you know what really shocked me, not saying I didn't trust Martin Dos Santos to start, but I didn't think he was going to start. I was expecting maybe Omar Valencia. I thought he was going to be starting as the fullback, but I thought Dos Santos would be like roster filler, and then the starting 11 comes out, and me and Gary Redmond are like, what? Him? Really? And I know it's a short-term loan and everything, but what a debut that was. And
yeah,
I don't know. I mean, do you think maybe all of a sudden he's going to get they'll decide to keep him and give him a full first-team contract now? I mean, it called me crazy, but I don't know if you take him out now.
No, I think you're absolutely right. I think it's shaping up to get an MLS homegrown contract because, as we know, only a handful of short-term loans are allotted to the teams for particular players. I think the number was actually shortened from 6 to 4 for this MLS season. I'm not 100% sure about that, but now we know, and this is some other news that's come out recently, Serge Ngoma, who occupies a supplemental roster spot, looks like he's going to be moving on loan or potentially in a transfer, but most likely on loan to a USL side. He was seen in Birmingham. The Birmingham Legion would be a good landing spot for him. Such a talented young player, Serge Ngoma, but hasn't had health, hasn't had a consistent run of games. So I think it might be, while I do believe there's an MLS quality player in there for sure, it might be the best course of action for his career to be at a team where he is going to be able to play week in and week out. And what that does is it opens up a roster spot for a homegrown player like Matty Dos Santos to get that contract. And I totally agree with you. The way he performed in that match, it looks like he might have that position be his. Omar Valencia was excellent at the beginning of 2025 and kind of fell off the wagon a little bit, lost his position to Raheem Edwards. He's not with the club. Marcelo Morales is no longer with the club, at least for the time being. He's on loan back to his home club, U de Chile. And Dos Santos, as we saw, got a lot of playing time in the preseason under Michael Bradley. He traveled with the team to Texas. It looked like they had been presenting him the opportunity to win a job, maybe as the left back behind Omar Valencia. But it'd be really, really difficult to look at his performance and say that he's not going to get the start on Saturday against the New England Revolution at home. I think he did more than well enough to earn another short-term loan. I think they've seen enough of him given in preseason and last year with the reserves with Michael Bradley. I think he's going to get an MLS homegrown contract, and I think the left back position might be his for the time being.
I think so too. And the other thing that I'm going to say, and I'm going to put up the scoring summary, of course, from this game as we continue on here. That right side was dangerous. I have never seen a Red Bull side look that dangerous down the wings, down the flanks. Cade Cowell, who was normally on the left side of the pitch, was asked by Michael Bradley to go to the right side, and look how he interacted with the midfielders. Look how he interacted bringing up the ball. That quick pass to Emil Forsberg to set up the first goal of the match in the 8th minute for Julian Hall. I mean, I've never seen relentless attacking the way that I have ever since I started following this club back in 1996 as the Metro Stars. I have never seen that type of waves and waves of attack. I mean, sure, when Jesse Marsch took over the club, yeah, you saw that pressing, which was nice. I saw overlapping. I saw interacted helping between the midfield and the strikers. Even the back line, the fullbacks are joining in on the attack. It was amazing. I could not believe what I'm watching, and I'm thinking to myself, James, is this the new style that not only does Michael Bradley want to run, but does Julian de Guzman, director of sports, wants to run as well? Because if that's the game plan for now in the future, I mean, oh my God, what the heck is going on here? And this is so fantastic.
I think, Dan, you asked the perfect question to kick off the press conference after the match on Saturday night. And you said, Coach, is this the blueprint? Is this the type of performance that the side should strive to put out every weekend? And while he didn't answer the question head on, because as we know, Michael Bradley, very diplomatic, very deliberate in the way he speaks, we saw that in the message with the locker room. He said, this is what it takes. This is what it takes to go out and play and fight for 90 minutes. I absolutely agree with you in your assessment of the success they had attacking on the wings, the speed in which they transitioned from having the ball to getting into dangerous areas to creating scoring chances. I mean, Dan, they could have had 4 or 5 goals by halftime, and they were a little bit unfortunate not to. And I think you could attribute some of that to some, first match of the season sharpness, where Ruvalcaba has a cross that's just like a few inches behind where Julian Hall is going to be. Cade Cowell smacks one off the crossbar. Valencia has a good strike from distance. Marshall Ruddy as well. They hit the post again in the second half with Forsberg on a half volley. And if not for Maxime Crepeau making some spectacular saves, it would have been 3 or 4 goals at halftime. You're absolutely right to point that out. And I just want to say, we were all a little bit surprised when we saw names like Dos Santos, Hall, and Mehmeti in the starting 11, and names like Berggren and Choupo-Moting, and to a lesser extent, Valencia on the bench. But I thought the youthful exuberance that they brought is exactly what this team needed to get that type of performance. Not that they wouldn't have had it with Choupo-Moting. In fact, I think they probably would have scored a few more of those opportunities had he been on the field in the first half. Not to take anything away from Julian Hall's electric 2-goal performance. But players like Mehmeti, he wasn't just a passenger on the field, Dan. He wasn't just disrupting plays defensively. I remember mentioning this to Mark Fishkin of Seeing Red, of course, friend of the show, at the end of the MLS Next Pro Cup championship at Sports Illustrated Stadium last year.
Okay, we'll still call Red Bull Arena. It's okay, but go ahead.
Of course. I remember saying he affects the game more with the ball, and he's better with the ball at his feet than guys like Daniel Edelman and Peter Stroud. And that's not to jump on Edelman and Stroud, that at the time, that's who he would have been competing for with first team minutes in the number 6 position. And what I saw in the match against Orlando was the exact same thing. He didn't just get the ball and switch it. He didn't just get the ball and play safe. He got it, turned into pressure, found dangerous passes, challenged himself, challenged his teammates, and really pushed the Orlando defense. I mean, on the assist he had on the second goal, he turns on David Brecalo, who had a shocking match, unfortunately, for Orlando. He was arguably their worst defender in the game, and context is important, but you can only beat who you're up against. Brecalo is an established defender who has played for his national team. Mehmeti took him on, turned, beat him on the dribble, and was able to assist Julian Hall. This is a player who affects the game. We have seen teenagers come into Major League Soccer midfields and be impactful players. I don't think I've ever seen a player as young as Mehmeti have that big of an imprint on the game, both defensively, offensively, with the ball. It was a masterclass of a performance from him specifically. I know it's only match day 1, his only first ever MLS start, but he is going to have a lot more eyeballs on this Red Bull New York team for people specifically looking to watch him, guys like Julian Hall as well, guys like Matty DeSantos. But across the board, the debutants from Cade Cowell was fantastic. You mentioned that he's more used to playing on the left. He's spoken about that before with media, that he's used to being the player on the left who cuts inside and does his damage in the half spaces there. But I thought his work overlapping with the likes of Marshall Ruddy, combining in the midfield with Donkor, who I thought was excellent, and Forsberg, and his ability to get space on the wings, attack there, put in crosses that were dangerous. He found there were a multitude of ways in which the Red Bull New York attack found success against Orlando. It is a multi-dimensional team in ways that it just hasn't been. We think back to 2025. There was no dimension other than Forsberg is going to try to link up with Choupo-Moting, and the two talented players are going to try to make some magic happen. Not to take away from how good Mohamed Sofo was and what a surprise that was at the start of last season, and the moments where Cam Harper was able to be healthy and score against DC United like he always does. But this team just has more weapons to it, more dimensions, and we saw even more players get introduced to the team. Tanner Rossborough getting a debut, Juan Mina getting a debut, and actually looked pretty good and nearly scored in the second half, if not for another big Maxime Crepeau save. There's a lot to like about this performance, and that's what I wanted to talk to Julian Hall about after the game, is the direction that Michael Bradley has this team playing. The ideas, I don't think I've ever seen them so clearly since the early days of the Jesse Marsch era. You could tell that the speed and intensity with which Michael Bradley wants this team to play, they're bought in, and they applied it to this match. And I think every fan should be very, very excited to see what they're able to do in front of the home crowd against a improving New England Revolution team on Saturday.
Oh, absolutely. And of course, that's going to be a big challenge for some of this young roster that this Red Bull team is going to be a part of now. So it's really going to be exciting and fun. I've never felt okay. You still have to temper expectations a little bit. You have to hold yourself back, but you can't not feel giddy of what you just saw against Orlando. And the way that, like I said, they took advantage of the wide play. They went and took care of a back line that did not know what was in front of them, and they were behind all the time. Like you said, what Mehmeti did, he tracked that ball back from the corner. He tracks back near, I would say, halfway to the top of the area. He settled it, and then he just turned and just beat his man for the low cross over to Julian Hall. And for Julian Hall, I don't want to poo-poo Sandro Schwartz, because what he did was good too. But to me, it feels like under Michael Bradley, maybe he has more freedom than what Sandro Schwartz did the last two seasons.
I think you're right to suggest that, because we saw a lot of times Julian Hall, he was played as a striker, and he was played as a winger, and he was played as one of those attacking midfielders in the 4-2-2-2 formation. And he struggled to find a home. I think his best football under Sandro Schwartz was played as a striker down the middle. I mentioned last time his goal against Monterrey, where he had that beautiful turn and finish on Sergio Ramos. And he had his moments. He scored that equalizing goal against Montreal that, ended up being crucial in 2024 for them to make the playoffs in the end. But in many ways, you're right to say that he has more freedom under Michael Bradley. Just, I think the way in which this team attacks, the fact that they use proper wingers more frequently, the fact that Julian Hall actually did play a little bit of on the wing in the second half when they brought on Choupo-Moting. And I thought he managed the game beautifully in doing so. They already had a 2-0 lead, and then you bring on a guy like Gustav Berggren and a guy like Choupo-Moting. Doesn't feel like you're going to end up squandering that lead and losing when you have those options off the bench. And as for what that gives Julian Hall, is it gives him some breathing room, one, that you have a DP striker who scored 17 goals ahead of you. But now that there's not a player like a Victor Bogarts ahead of him in the pecking order, it now says not only are we going to give you a little more breathing room, but we are going to give you the opportunities to go out there and strut your stuff, go after them. And you saw Michael Bradley speaking to Julian Hall before the game in a little clip that the club posted, and he turned to me and he said, "Give him hell." And I think that's exactly the type of player that Julian Hall is. And how many young attacking players that come from the Red Bull system have we seen embody that philosophy? You're going to make things difficult for the defenders that are against you. Even if you're not scoring that match, you're going to make those defenders work every second, whether they have the ball, whether you have the ball. It is going to be a fight. And he had to work for those goals, Julian. I mean, the first one was a tap in, and the second one you could also call a tap in. But they don't happen without him doing valuable work in the process. And yes, there's a couple chances where he could have had another. And I think that just speaks to the type of player he is. He's a dog. He fights for every inch. He's an athletic monster, super fast, very creative, and he has the finishing ability to be a proper striker in this league. And I think people are excited to see what he's able to do this year. People think he's poised for a breakout season. And there's no better way to start a breakout season than with 2 goals on the opening match of the season. Do I think he's going to spend his entire career with Red Bull New York? Absolutely not. I think one more season, if he continues to play like this, I think by the time he's 18 years old, you can expect those calls to Europe to get a little bit louder. And if he has a half-decent season, maybe at the end of 2027 is he on his way out. But I'm so excited to see what he's capable of. And we've known for a while, folks who have watched him with Red Bulls too, folks who have been familiar with him and in his academy days. Eric Friedlander did a great job pointing out that in 2023, the Red Bull U15 team won the MLS Next Pro National Championship. Who were 3 players on that roster? Julian Hall, Audrey Mehmeti, Matty Dos Santos, and even who came off the bench, and Tanner Rossborough. So I think there's a real reason to be excited about that class of players. Not only because a lot of them were able to contribute to the MLS Next Pro Cup Championship last year, but the MLS Next U15 Championship back in 2023. The growth just keeps continuing. Do I think all 3 of those players will start on Saturday? I don't know. They could go back to Choupo-Moting from the start. They could use Julian Hall as an impact, or they could keep the blueprint the way it is, because I think there's a lot to like about the way that they started that match. Maybe we see Audrey Mehmeti from the go again. Who knows? Maybe they were giving Berggren a little bit of a way to ease back in after he missed part of preseason to be with his family for the birth of his son. We'll see what that means. But for now, a lot to like and a lot to be excited about. Not that it counts for anything, but Major League Soccer did bump Red Bull New York 14 spaces up in their newest power rankings. They're now at 8th, I believe, into the top 10. Those don't mean anything, but the league is starting to take notice. It does mean that.
Well, that's a good thing, because that's the only thing I can recognize with those power rankings. Like, you got to take notice and see what's coming up here through the ranks at Red Bull New York. And because, I'm one of those, I don't believe in the power rankings. I'm like, it's nice to read about, obviously. Right. It's good to talk about it. But I do agree with you on that point. It's what they're doing with their roster and how they're building it into, hopefully, a powerhouse down the road. Let me ask you this. When this Red Bull 2 side was in USL, they won the USL championship. They had a great playoff run. That team at the time had Derek Etienne Jr. It had Tyler Adams. It had Sean Davis. And it had a plethora of other players that did wonderful things. Unfortunately, of course, they left the club and went somewhere else after being promoted to the MLS club. Can we say that maybe this next crop of MLS Next Pro champions from 2025, is this the next crop to become the best part of Red Bull New York now for a new season in MLS? Mehmeti with Julian Hall, with Dos Santos, Roseborough, and we haven't seen Rold Mitchell yet on the first team yet, because we haven't seen him get an opportunity yet this season. But once again, it's only one game. Does this feel like that this is the type of team that's ready for a future that's going to shine brighter and give everyone a reason to come visit the stadium and say, this is the next wave of great, talented, homegrown players that this club has developed?
Absolutely. And I think there are some players, even not the homegrown, who I think are making that jump and going to be impactful. Andy Rojas, Rafael Mosquera, those are players that were brought in from Central America and were huge parts of that Red Bulls 2 team and have already been in and around their national teams. Andy Rojas is something of a regular with the Costa Rican national team already. And I think he may be one of the first or second options off the bench at the winger position, maybe for 2026. But in 2027, there's a very real opportunity for him to be a key member of this team. And the same goes for Mosquera. We heard that Michael Bradley mentioned Rojas in the context of being a midfielder. That's not something we saw with him previously, but we look at the Red Bull roster and you say after Forsberg, Donkor, Mehmeti, Berggren, and Benedetti, there's a lot of space for midfielders to get minutes. And if he sees Rojas as a midfielder, that's another opportunity for him to be a key member this year. But those are just the players that aren't homegrowns. For the homegrowns that you mentioned, Mehmeti, for Julian Hall, for Rold Mitchell when his time comes, Matty Dos Santos, like we know. These are players who have absolutely earned the right to get into the first team. And the symmetry with the 2016 era is not lost on me either. You had your Tyler Adams, you had your Aaron Longs, you had your Derek Etiennes, your Florian Valot, Stefano Bonomo, who never really got his chance with the first team, but was a first-team player, Vincent Bezecourt, who ended up being a really, really important off-the-bench piece in that 2018 Supporters' Shield run. There's a reason why Dax McCarty, who was the captain of the team at the time, was traded to the Chicago Fire ahead of the 2017 season. There needed to be room for Tyler Adams to flourish and become the player that he is today, become the captain of the U.S. men's national team at the last World Cup, to be a stalwart midfielder in the English Premier League. And yes, it hurt a lot of fans when Daniel Edelman was traded and when Peter Stroud was traded, but there's only so many places on the field, Dan, and Audrey Mehmeti was coming for their spots. This is the same situation. Do I think Audrey Mehmeti is going to have the same career as Tyler Adams? Well, it's far too early to tell that, for one. And for another, I'm not going to put that type of pressure on Mehmeti, but what I will say is he is handling the moment spectacularly. All of these young players are. Julian Hall has been a professional now for his third full season. He got his debut in 2023. This is now his third full season as a first-team professional in this sport. That's a very difficult thing to be at only 17 years old. And we're looking at him and speaking about him as if he's been around the block, because in a way he has, and he's already mature beyond his years. Dos Santos, for this to be his MLS debut, he looked like a veteran of the league already. He looked like he could be in the top half of left backs in Major League Soccer, a position that the Red Bulls struggled with last year after losing John Tolkien. So this is absolutely something that fans should be excited about, that things should make them want to come to the stadium. I do understand it may take some time to get the word out about this. They may look around the squad and say, outside of Forsberg, outside of Choupo-Moting, outside of Ethan Horvath, who I remember from that Nations League final, a lot of names here I don't recognize. Kate Cowell should be a household name for American soccer fans as well. But the point being, it may take time for fans to get behind the project altogether. But for the fans that are always tapped in, for the diehards, I mean, the vibes have never been this good, at least not since the Jesse era. Even during the 2024 MLS Cup run, I think everybody was kind of collective that was an unbelievable moment, but people were like, this is a moment. This isn't something that's going to guarantee that we'll be back in 2025 and going to be here. That was a great run. You could call it a fluke for that reason, but I think Sandro Schwartz kind of just put the best team that he could together and said, if we're going to get to the final, this is how we're going to do it. We're going to play ugly and we're going to fight our way there. And the fans recognized it and they said, this is a once-in-a-lifetime moment. I'm going to go fly out to Los Angeles and watch the team play, win or lose. I'm going to live the time of my life. Now people are saying, well, this is a great project. There's great ideas. We've got smart people at the helm in Julian de Guzman and Michael Bradley. And like we've been saying, do we think that this roster is fully finished yet? Probably not. But the fact that they have the identity that they have, that's the strongest piece of what this team is. And the kids have been a big part of bringing that to fruition, at least through match day one. We'll see what type of part they play for the rest of the season, but so much to be excited about for sure, Dan. And I can't wait for Saturday. I think it's going to be a great match with two good teams.
Yep, me too. My one concern is this. One of my favorite players from the last couple of years on this club is Cameron Harper, and I know he's coming back from injury. I don't know if he's 100% fully fit yet, but when he does come back, is there room for him? Or are they going to have to find a transfer partner to put him somewhere else in the league? I don't know if he'll ever go to Europe. I don't know if he'll go anywhere else. But one thing's for sure, I still feel Cameron Harper is an integral piece to this Red Bull side. But then again, I'm not the head coach. I'm not Michael Bradley. It's his call, obviously. But in your mind, where do you see Cameron Harper fitting into this situation?
I think it's an important player to bring up because I agree with you. He is a key member of the squad. We saw how important he was in the 2024 season. And in 2023, he really earned his spot in this team as a wingback, as a winger, as a fullback. He's an impactful wide player in a number of different areas, which is why I think, versatility is something that's clearly valued by Michael Bradley. We've seen it with the defenders early on. We've seen it in Julian Hall being able to play as both a striker and a winger. And we've seen it with Forsberg, where he's being asked to play even a little deeper in midfield. We still saw his impact on the team's attack on Saturday night was remarkable and what we've come to expect from him. But he was, receiving the ball off the center backs. That's not something he did a lot of under Sandro Schwartz, hardly ever, really. So I think the versatility one is something that Julian de Guzman and Michael Bradley certainly value. And Cameron Harper is a very versatile player in that respect. I remember de Guzman mentioning Harper as a potential option at right back back in the postseason press conference at the end of 2025. I think that's been his best position, really, for Red Bull New York when they've played in a back three or a back five. When he's the right wing back, his ability to bomb up and down the field, very athletic, very quick player who's been good there. But when he's in the attack, he's proven to be an important piece as well. Plus, his goal scoring record against DC United is a very welcome one for fans who love to hate DC United, of course, the oldest rival of Red Bull New York / the Metro Stars. We've seen the same thing with Lewis Morgan in that he's still not fully fit. He has not been in the squad for San Diego in their first few matches. And maybe Morgan, his name certainly carries a little bit more weight around the league than Harper does, but they were able to find a move for Morgan. I think they could have found a move for Harper in the offseason. I think they might have plans for him in this team. Do I think there's space for him at the right wing position with Cade Cowell and Rojas and Mosquera all being options there? I don't know, but I do think that at the right back position, he can reclaim a starting spot even. I thought Marshall Ruddy was excellent in the first match. I thought Mina came off the bench and actually surprised folks, including myself, with how competent he was. But I think Cameron Harper is more than good enough to start at the right back position for this team. I think they're going to give him at least a chance to fight for his spot when he's healthy. I think they again, this is, I'm assuming a lot of these things. This is conjecture. This is hypothetical. Do I think he's definitely going to be the option at right back if he comes back from injury sooner rather than later? I don't know. Do I think that he can challenge Ruvalcaba and Cowell for minutes in the winger positions? I don't know. But if I were in Michael Bradley's shoes, I certainly wouldn't give up on Cam Harper, and I would look at him as a potential solution to solidifying the defense, and putting him as an option at right back, I think, would help with that. Because right now, after losing 3 center backs in the winter window and 2 left backs, yes, you brought in Marshall Ruddy, but now you've got Dos Santos Valencia at your left back position. At the right back, you've got Marshall Ruddy, Juan Mina, and Dennis Yengor. I think Cameron Harper is just as good, if not better, than all of the names I've just said. I think he can absolutely do a job at right back. We'll see what his fitness looks like when he fully comes back into the team. We know he's been training. He didn't play in preseason in any of the matches, didn't make the squad on Saturday. We'll see what his fitness level is when he does come back. But I do think he's a versatile enough player and a talented enough one to be given the opportunity to prove why he should be there. But if the space isn't there for him, he's another player that around the league, I'm sure an MLS team would be willing to take a chance on him, and maybe Red Bull New York gets some GAM back. But I would like to see Cameron Harper get another go with Red Bull New York. And if it's not in the attack, put him at right back. I think that's been his best position. I'd like to see him there more.
My final question for you is this. Obviously, Michael Bradley, now first game as a head coach in the books, gets the win. Look, I think I've said it most of the time, family lineage. His father is a great head coach. He's now in the coaching ranks. He's been through a lot. He's been head coached by his dad, by Bruce, by Berhalter, by so many different, Jurgen Klinsmann on the national team. He's also been head coached all over Europe, MLS. Like I said, I don't want to go overboard completely, but what do you see from him that makes you think that this is the one? Maybe this is the one. Not this season, But down the road, maybe he is the one to finally get that first cup championship for this club that hasn't had anything since starting in the league in 1996.
Well, I do think that the players have given us the best understanding of what Michael Bradley's influence is. They raved about him, Dan. We heard as much, that the clarity, Dylan Nealis' words echo around in my brain a lot when I think about this. The clarity and the direction in which Michael Bradley has presented to the team has never been better. We're talking about a guy who understands U.S. soccer more than anybody else. This is a guy who played in Italy, in Germany, in England, in the Netherlands, in Canada, and in the U.S. He's played under, how many managers did you name? Bob Bradley and Bruce Arena probably top the list of the most influential U.S. men's national team managers. He's played under both of them. He lived in a house with Bob Bradley for his 18 years of his childhood. There's got to be some imprint there, you'd have to imagine. And I think the way he spoke about his coaching decisions on Saturday is he talked about Orlando City and the way that they were able to adjust in the second half. And Oscar Pereira is a fantastic manager. We know as much. He set up his team probably poorly in the first half, and he would admit it. He actually apologized to the Orlando. I'm not sure if you saw this. He apologized to the Orlando City fans because it was the worst half he's ever seen, in front of their fans in the first match of the season. It's unacceptable. And he's right to say that, and he's right to point it out. And then he made a big move at halftime. He brought off who I thought was their most dangerous player in the first 45, and Marko Pasalic, and he brought him off and said, we're not going to play with wingers. We're going to play a 4-2-2-2. We're going to be super aggressive. We're going to play with two strikers. And that brought Orlando into the game. And Michael Bradley acknowledged this and said, I know how Oscar Pereira plays. I've played against his teams many, many times. I think it's his understanding of what he's up against. He's always been such a smart player in his playing days, always been wiser than mature beyond his years, even when, he was a younger player getting into the U.S. national team ahead of the 2010 World Cup. At the 2009 Confederations Cup, we saw how great he was in that midfield with Ricardo Clark when the U.S. eventually fell narrowly 3-2 in the final against Brazil after they beat the amazing Spanish team, their first loss in 30-plus matches in that semifinal. Michael Bradley was a huge part of that team and the nexus of it, even when he was young. I think we've seen the type of player that he's always been in his career. It's the same type of manager he's going to be, one that understands his opponent, one that understands his teammates, and one that understands football. I know Zlatan Ibrahimovic and him got into a dust-up, and when Zlatan was in the LA Galaxy back in 2019, that he made fun of Michael Bradley because he said he thinks he's the philosopher of football. And maybe from a player like Zlatan Ibrahimovic, he's got a right to criticize other people for their antics and for their egomania. But Michael Bradley, in American soccer terms, is absolutely one of the foremost philosophers of football. And his competition, he knows what he's up against. Do I think he's going to get every decision right? And do I think the Red Bulls are now favorites to win MLS Cup because of how good they looked in the first 45, especially against Orlando on Saturday night? No, I don't think so. But I don't think it has to be done this year. And I don't think they even have to go on and win it for people to believe that he's the right man for the job. He absolutely has pushed this team into the right direction. Even if they go on to the Revolution on Saturday and they lose in an embarrassing result, if they are able to apply the same ideas and find some success, even if it doesn't result into goals and it doesn't result into a win, I think folks will be excited by the prospect of what's to come. And I think the fact that they're building towards something that isn't just, well, we're going to do the Red Bull system, but just tweak it a little bit so we have a little bit more of the ball, or we're going to make do with what players we have here and play an ugly game and try to scrape out wins. No, it's not that. But it's also not an abandonment of what Red Bull is either, right? You saw the intensity. You saw the pressure in which they gave. Orlando couldn't deal with it. They were so unapologetically Red Bull, but were so unapologetically different in a way that it married two identities into one new one that I don't think we've ever seen before. I think that's what fans should be excited about. Not whether or not that it's going to definitely bring about MLS Cup, but because they're going about it the right way, even if it doesn't. I do think that Michael Bradley is the right man for the job. Julian de Guzman, as vindicated as a head of sport can be after one match day, for sure, in the way he's done it. And I can't wait to see what they follow up that first match with. I think they're going to, even if they don't win on Saturday, I'll pick them to win, but I do think that they're going to apply those same principles and make people proud that this is the team that they get to support.
Exactly. And James, as always, I appreciate your time to joining me tonight. That was, I'm still in shock from what I saw over the weekend, but it's pleasantly shocked. I'll put it that way. As I said with Gary Redmond through his post-match video, should have been 2-0, should have been 5-0. It should have been a red wedding. It should have been 7-0 for the Red Bulls against Orlando City. But look, you better be lucky than good. And a little unlucky here and there, but they still got the win. They only gave up a goal, final seconds of second half stoppage time. And once they got back to the center circle, the referee blew the whistle, said, that's it. It's over. But as always, James, I appreciate your time. Thank you very much for joining me tonight, okay?
Thank you so much, Dan. And a great piece speaking about South Georgia Tormenta and what's going on in USL. I think it's very important, and you always do such a great job highlighting these issues. So thank you so much for having me on.
Well, listen, look, this is the game in the country. We can't keep losing these clubs, and we can't have these clubs if they're going to, end their existence in the professional levels. You can't cut it that close and then make everyone scramble for a job. It's just not fair. It's not fair. And for USL to allow this to happen, I think they should be, on the front foot and try to help this club remain afloat until they can either find new ownership or to say, okay, we'll hand the reins over to somebody else and then we'll call the team some other name. So, something has to happen. And it's just not fair. It's not fair for the fans. It's not fair for the players, the coaching staff, and the entire teams that are in that league. It's just not fair, period. But ladies and gentlemen, this will do it for our show tonight. Please join this coming Friday night. CONCACAF Champions Cup, round 1, MLS review, second leg, and it should be a lot of fun. I want to thank James Birle from Empire Soccer Report for joining me tonight. And as always, please enjoy your football. Take care, so long. Have a good night, and bye-bye for now. Have a good night, everybody.